Welcome, everybody. Rick DiClemente with you with Astrology Unplugged. Nice to have you, and thank you for joining us from YouTube. Tonight's going to be not something light. Tonight's going to be a really intriguing subject: the planet Neptune, and nobody ever talks about Neptune. Very seldom do people write about Neptune. Very seldom does anybody understand Neptune. And I'm going to give you what I got. And I'll give you a bunch of different pieces, but Neptune's a weird one. It's just a weird planet, it is. Now, when we go back through, our list of planets, remembering that there are astronomers in this world and astrologers. Okay, when we go to that list, you'll see here that this is the basic teaching diagram for planets. And the sun, these are the 5 personal planets: the sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars. They move very quickly, and they have a lot to do with how the personality is made up. And then the middle planets, they're very social planets. They move relatively fast, not too fast, not too slow, Jupiter and Saturn. Then the outer planets, which I spend most of my time focusing on these 4, the outer 3, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, are very, very important. And of course, now we're watching Eris, and we're also watching Chiron. But as far as astrologers, Pluto's a planet. Okay, so if these astronomers want to try to convince you that Pluto is not a planet because of their reasons, then that's fine for them. But in astrology, Pluto is definitely a planet. Okay, but we're not talking, and Pluto's been so active lately, past 20 years. We've beat her to death. We've talked so much about her, and she is, all of these are much easier to understand than Neptune. Neptune's really a difficult planet to understand. So I'm going to do my best with you tonight. And hold on to your questions till later, because Neptune's weird. And it's not that I don't want you talking in the beginning. It's that in the beginning, I'm trying to get stuff out of my system that I've got on my mind. And once I get it out, then I'm more open for questions and discussion. Neptune is my favorite planet. Always has been. I don't know why, because it's crazy. But it's not just crazy. Hi, Rick. Speaking of crazy, Rick pops up on the scene. Neptune is very, very, very unworldly. It's not like the other 8, whatever number there are. It's just not. And the essence of Neptune is to be unworldly, to be otherworldly. And I've been thinking of so many things tonight about Neptune to talk to you about, and it's so difficult to do because it's nature. The other planets are for your energy, for your growth, for your stability, for your formation of your ego, etc., etc. Neptune's not like any of those. Neptune is, in a sense, anti-you. But it's not against you, it's beyond you. It wants you to go beyond the simple self, beyond the small self to the big self. So you've heard about that in all your spiritual studies. That's what Neptune is. It's nothing to do with the small s self. That's the other planets. Neptune is the big self, okay, which is your union with God. Now, you'll hear me mention God all the time here. What I try to mean by God is not a man up there or a woman up there who's giving you instructions and dogma, but it's your source of beauty, of knowledge, of riches, of inspiration. Neptune's everything to do with that. And I think in a lot of ways, I'm not sure, but in a whole lot of ways, I equate Neptune with the Holy Spirit. Now, I don't know where the legal book of rules is, planetary rules are, but whether I'm allowed to do such a thing, but I do it because Neptune is really a lot like the Holy Spirit. Now, Neptune in the birth chart is one thing. Transiting Neptune coming by, hitting your chart is a completely different story. The common thing you see with Neptune when Neptune hits a person is they either don't notice anything happening, they get very confused, especially when this planet is very close. It's very common to even have psychotic experiences when this planet is exact, because you're just nutso for a couple of days. This planet does not support you because in its mind, there is no you. There's just us. So it can be very downright confusing. Now, it's a planet full of love, just like the Holy Spirit is. And that's why it's a planet of no separation. It's a planet of no distinctions. In 1975, I was meditating. Now, I didn't realize it till 78, because 78 is when I started astrology. Just to give you an example. I was in meditation. I looked back and figured this out. And Neptune went over my Mercury. When it goes over, it goes back and forth for a couple of years because it's slow moving. 184 years to go around the circle, 186 years to go around the circle, about 15 years per sign. When Neptune went over me in my meditation, all of a sudden, all my walls fell down. I didn't even know I had mental walls. I didn't know I had constructs, but they all fell down. Now, my best analogy for you is to think of a Hollywood set and they got the walls propped up with 2x4s. You get inside the set, seems like a living room. Outside, you just see all these fake walls held up by 2x4s so they could take them down quickly. That's what happened to me. My mind became unbounded and it never returned. It never became bounded again, for good and bad. What does that mean? That means that when you're going up the ladder of spiritual understanding, you always get near the top and you start to talk about unboundedness, open-mindedness, etc. All right. Now, when you're talking about unboundedness, it's a very difficult subject, mainly because it's too simple. Now, all the other planets in the zodiac assume they've got a self to work with, and they want to naturally make the self stronger, bigger, more potent. Neptune's the opposite. Neptune has no interest in working with you as an individual. Okay, so when my mind experienced unboundedness, it was really good for the Eastern India type of thinking, for the transcendental type of thinking to go beyond just the individual. It was very good for that, but it's very hard on people who think this is it. And this is the reason Pisces have a hard time. They're ruled by Neptune. Pisces do have a hard time. All Pisces have a hard time because Neptune is a very strange ruling planet, especially if you're not brought up with it, not brought up with understanding about the unboundedness. Now, if you're brought up with a Buddhist tradition of the unboundedness and the boundedness, and you put the two together, then you're right down the avenue of what Neptune is about. Now, here's what happens with Neptune. When Neptune goes over people, normal, let's call it normal muggles, normal Americans, what it does is it makes you very dissatisfied. Usually. I don't really want to be married to the same person. I don't really want the same job, but boy, I'm kind of bored with this car. I'm kind of bored with living in this town. And it's not that Neptune's making you bored, but that's a very common experience. I think I'll go have an affair. That's a very common experience with Neptune, because surely this young chick over here, she's going to give me more thrills than what I've got now. Neptune almost always equals scandal. And somebody will flash the flashlight on what you're doing, and they will find out, and it will not be pretty. That's usually how Neptune is. But let's talk about what's really going on. Neptune's trying from that God center inside of you to speak to your higher self and to tell you there's a higher world out there. You can go back to God. You can go back in his direction. I don't know the answers. There are a lot of different answers. But Neptune wants you to go home. That's what it wants. It's the only thing it will support you about going back home. And how do you go back home? But by undoing everything. Undoing everything until you're stripped down to nothing, and then you're back at everything. That's how Neptune works. Ram Dass said it perfectly. If you want to be somebody, then first become nobody. Then you can be anybody. It's exactly how he put it. It's exactly how it is. And he calls it a game. And I don't like him calling it a game. Makes it too frivolous. But it is a game in the sense that you're playing kind of games with your mind, where one thing is true and the other thing is true, and they're both true at the same time. John, you and I have talked about this with the self and the non-self. It's very, very similar. But what happens with people is very, very, very common that they have affairs. And the reason they have affairs is they think that over there is going to be better. Kind of like Gemini. Over the fence is going to be better than here. And they get there and everything's just glorious and hunky-dory. And they start to wonder. I got two friends right now that are going at it. They both just got out of marriages, and they're both just full of Neptune. One's got Neptune everywhere, the other's got Neptune everywhere, and I knew before I looked it was all Neptune. And they're both just, oh, wow, wow. And I just knew this was self-delusion, and it's what it is. This is one of the biggest dangers of Neptune, self-delusion. That does not mean you will delude yourself, but your propensity is strong. Either deluding yourself or refusing to see what's there, or seeing what's there, but insisting on what it is, but it's not really what it is. So when you're going through this period of great dissatisfaction, it's the perfect time for you to get to know Holy Spirit inside yourself, or to get to know your heart, because you can then start to see that you're taking a lot of things in your life terribly for granted. And you can start to see the value of love and what you do have, your Thanksgiving, your personal Thanksgiving. And it can be a wonderful thing if you learn the lesson when Neptune's around. I have seen Neptune do one thing good to someone in my lifetime. One thing that was exceptionally good to a person that was because of Neptune, and they didn't get a mixture of good and bad, but this person got all a bunch of good stuff, and that was the Dalai Lama, and he got the Nobel Prize for Peace. When Neptune hit his sun, mainly when it hits the sun. But you can see that these planets are they're very pure, major archetypes, and each archetype is just so different from the others. Take a look at what Neptune does, then think about what Pluto does. Think about what Mars does. They're all dramatically different. So if you're asleep, Neptune will draw you towards an affair. It will even draw you towards cheating. A lot of criminals have Neptune, stealing. You're trying to transcend the limited world you're in. And you know that there's something more, and you don't have the patience, and you want to go grab it all. That's where it comes from. And Neptune doesn't want you to do things in an unhealthy fashion. Neptune wants you to give up, things come to you. Give up, things come to you. Let go, things come to you. That's the total story of Neptune. All the other planets have no idea what I'm talking about. Go grab, go get, go build, go mount, go make it stronger, go twist it, go shape it, go make it bigger. Go do something to it. Not Neptune. Allow everything to just become bigger. Allow the grace of God to come to you. That's why when you study these beautiful actresses like Audrey Hepburn, Neptune trine to Venus, and people even say, God, her beauty is just otherworldly. That's where it's coming from. God, this Eva Cassidy, where does she sing like this? It's heavenly. It's like the angels. It is. These particular people in their own art are in touch with Neptune, usually through a good aspect, and you're picking up the good, positive strength of that planet. And it's weird because how can Neptune be a planet of nothingness, but yet it's a planet of fullness? And it is. That's the irony. You poets, that's the irony of Neptune. It's nothing, it's everything. It's all same time. It will not accept a definition. This is one of the main problems. Look at the Pisces people you know in your life. Everybody knows a Pisces. The main problem with Pisces people is, and they're lovely people, they will not accept a definition. No matter what you say to them, give it to them in Merriam-Webster bound dictionary. Give it to them in the Oxford dictionary. Write it down, chisel it. I don't care how you give it to them. They're not going to accept a definition of themselves. They won't do it because they know that they're more than that. And they're right. They are more than that. But by denying everything that's around, they end up with a handful of denials. And they don't have any idea what they are, what's left. You've denied everything. So that's why I spent a lot of really hard work in this book explaining to Pisces how they're everything and they're nothing at the same time. At the same time. That's the key to that book. This is a very, very valuable lesson. How you can be nothing and something at the same time. John knows what I mean. John doesn't have to talk to me. John's a poet. He understands the void is full. It's void and it's full. When I'm playing guitar and I let the void take over, it's a bunch of nothingness, but yet the fullness comes out. I don't know where it's coming from. It just comes out. Simone Biles, most wonderful gymnast we've ever had in this country. She's in the peak of the Olympics. She gets to the very finals and she says, I'm not going to perform. Virgo. Remember? I knew exactly why. Perfect. I knew exactly without seeing her shirt. I don't feel right. And I'm not going to perform. She wasn't sick. She wasn't attuned with her normal self. And I knew that she was smart enough to sense the Neptune moving in her chart. And I looked it up and there was Neptune smack dab on her. When Neptune is on you, you feel weird because it's just different. It's a time to go to an ashram. It's a time to go to church. It's a time to go camping by yourself. It's a time I'm getting all my names mixed up now. For the authors in New England to write their books on transcendentalism. That's what Neptune is. It's transcendentalism. Now, a couple of years before Neptune hit Simone, she was fine. A couple of years later, she'll be fine. But when it was there, she couldn't do it. And she was really smart not to do it because she could have broken her leg or something worse. But more importantly, she was smart enough. She could sense this. And being a Virgo, this killed her not to be doing her work. But she was smart enough, wise enough inside. Steve Blass. Pittsburghers, Steve Blass, 1971. Fabulous starting pitcher, maybe the best starting pitcher that we've ever had, one of the top 3 or 4. Wins the World Series Game 7 by practically pitching a no-hitter. Just a phenomenal pitcher, power pitcher. 72, he's pitching just as good. 1970, pitching just as good. 73, he can't get the ball near the strike zone. They get patient with him. They try this, try that. 1974, can't get the ball near the strike zone. 1975, he's walking everybody. He just lost control completely. I knew it was Neptune. It was Neptune. He quit baseball. They had him even pitching halfway between the pitcher's mound and home plate, pitching underhanded, trying anything to get him back in the rhythm of how you pitch. He is unconscious how the ball goes to the catcher. He tried everything, didn't work. Traded him to the Cardinals, that didn't work. He fell apart, and he handled it really, really beautifully with a lot of class. He gave up baseball, world champion, couldn't do it anymore. I don't know why. I can't say his real self wanted him to go on a more spiritual path. I'm not going to say why, but this is why these things happen. I see it all the time with people. When you see somebody that just kind of loses it out of nowhere, look at their Neptune. If they're a Virgo, look at what's happening to their Mercury. Look at what's happening to their Chiron. He went on to become a world famous 35-year baseball announcer till he retired last year. I've met the man, just the picture of a good person, good, solid person, really real. So what's Neptune doing in these situations? What's it doing? What it's doing is there's a part of you inside that is very smart. It's a lot smarter than your daily self. And we've even got the other Rick. When you get both Ricks going like this, man, are you in trouble? Your heart, your solar spirit, your Holy Spirit inside knows what it's doing. I'm not going to give you a big lecture, but it knows how to get you back to God. It just does. It comes out. It tickles you when you're in church. It tickles you when you hear a certain song. I don't have to tell you people. You know what I'm talking about. That's the Holy Spirit. That's Neptune. So I've written in the book, the unwise person goes and has an affair, goes and steals money and embezzles, goes to try to get more. That's exactly what Neptune doesn't want. Then you get to crisis. And I'll tell you, and I have a lot of proof for this, if you've got a politician who's being semi-blamed for a scandal, and Neptune and the eclipses are coming near that person's scandal, if the eclipses are coming near the planets in their chart, which are being hit by Neptune, I will guarantee you the person is guilty. And they're going to have their ugly laundry out on the drying ropes, hanging out to dry. Neptune does it to you on purpose. Neptune causes a scandal on purpose. Trump's Neptune is causing scandal after scandal after scandal within himself on purpose because he just can't believe when's he going to finally listen. That's what's going on. It's not that our Neptune's smart, his is dumb. He's just not going to give in. He's got it right. The ego has got such a handle over his Neptune, and the Neptune is correct. So when you do listen to Neptune, and you are on track with it, unlike the person having the affair, what do? You want to refine your life. You want to listen to more refined music, more refined type of clothes, maybe go from eating meat to being a vegetarian, get into more refined colors, hang out with more refined people, quieter people, going and sitting by the lake. You just want to get more into that refined part of you that is calling you. It's the opposite of Uranus. Uranus is get all up and excited and wow, let's try all this. Okay, it's got its place. Neptune's the opposite. I was thinking of Thoreau earlier and Emerson when I talked about sitting by the lake. Those guys were going under major Neptune transits. Whitman was going under major Neptune transits when he wrote The Leaves of Grass. They all were. When you write Moby Dick, it's Neptune. Because who's a Neptune artist? Bowie. He's like there, but he ain't there. You know what I'm saying? He's like there, but he ain't there. He's bigger than there. These artists that are bigger than the usual boundaries. And I'm not talking about pseudo boundaries like Michael Jackson. He's got all the flipped out moves. Those aren't real boundaries. The real boundless ones, like Robert Plant, yes, yeah, Plant can do it, but Leonard Cohen. My God, listen to some of Leonard Cohen's songs. And he got to be his 60s into his early 70s, and he had been going back and forth to ashrams, and he got in his late 60s, and he had all his money stolen. Millions were stolen. Neptune. His assistant took all his money. He didn't care. Neptune was testing him. He went back to his guru in Southern California, and he was living on a hard rock. And he was this particular type of Virgo where he was going through hardship lessons on purpose. And he came out of it purified. He came out of it purified. And I'm sure you Virgos know what I'm talking about. He came out of it not needing anything of the earth, not needing anything of the world. These lessons that you've heard Christ talk about, these are the Neptune lessons. Until you die, you cannot be reborn. These are all Neptune phrases. Now, I know how hard it is because I was left with no mind. I was left with unboundedness. And I had to deal with the rest of my life all these people that said, well, this is boundary to this, and this is the boundary to this, and that's the boundary to that, and this one matches that. And I knew everybody was off track here. You're just off track. So I had to go through all these years of dealing with the unbounded and the bounded at the same time, trying to work with Ram Dass and trying to blend the two, which I think I did fairly well in that book. Because the book talks about being in the world, but not of it. That's Neptune. I'm in the world, but I'm not of it. The guy I told you about, his family called me, please come save us. I drove to southern Pittsburgh. This was 20 years ago. He's got Neptune on him. Come help us because Dad wants to leave the family, but you got 3 little ones. He wants to leave the family and he wants to go to Vegas and become a cop. Well, one thing Neptune does, it makes you a filmmaker. It makes you want to make movies. It wants you to go off into glamour with big sunglasses. Glamour is one of the big negative sides of Neptune because you confuse the real glamour of God with pseudo glamour of Hollywood. And I want to try to talk to this guy about you can't just give up your 3 little kids and move because Neptune's on you and you think something's waiting for you much better in Las Vegas because it ain't. And he went ahead and dumped them anyway. And he went to Vegas and it all fell apart. There was nothing there. So Neptune is very, very tricky. Look at it natally. When it's next to the sun in a natal chart, it's very tough because the sun is your source of identity and Neptune is your source of non-identity. Or I guess better said, it's your source of identity with allness. Look at your moon's next to Neptune. Moon Neptune. There's nobody in the zodiac with stronger intuition than the people with moon Neptune, moon square Neptune, moon opposite, moon trine Neptune. If it's a softer aspect, the intuition will be more accurate. But you've got that. I've got moon trine Neptune. You've got that. You are, I think Susan is saying she does too.
Moon, Mars, and Neptune, grand trine.
And you throw Mars in there too. Yeah, Moon, Mars, and Neptune, that's really good. That Mars really changes it. But the Neptune is what opens you up to the nothingness. And I shouldn't even call it nothingness. I should call it allness.
And the Mars is in Pisces, so isn't that another Neptune influence?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that means to me, studying your chart, when you have a grand trine like that, it means to me that you had many lifetimes that you've been in sync with the Holy Spirit. You've been many lifetimes spiritually in tune with being an artist. I don't know what you want to call it, but you can tell the artists who are Neptunian. You think George Harrison was Neptunian? Yeah, he was. You think McCartney is? Yeah. McCartney's got Neptune right on his ascendant. That's where he gets this phenomenal variety of songs coming out of him, but they're not deep and mystical. deep and mystical, like with Harrison. They're more popping along. Hey, what's in the jukebox? Gemini. Mercury next to Neptune. Now, these people got to be really careful. They can really be mentally out there, unbounded, or they can be mentally nuts. Mercury square Neptune, Mercury opposite Neptune. Well, sometimes some of the things you do on Earth, you want to have boundaries, like when you're doing your taxes, when you're driving a car. You want to have some healthy boundaries. Now, when Mercury opposite Neptune, then you just think you can do anything. You've heard of the old sayings of the LSD people, oh, I think I'll jump off this building and I'll fly. Well, that's somebody with too much Neptune. Really bad case of Neptune. Venus, Neptune. Venus, Neptune are your incurable romantics. They just want romance at any cost, and they'll go from one disastrous relationship to another. Venus, Neptune, on the other hand, can be extremely beautiful, and such is the beauty with Audrey Hepburn. If the aspect is more harmonious, you'll see that with the person. Mars, Neptune people, these people can get in a lot of trouble because Mars is how you move and Neptune is unbounded, and that means you can do anything you want. Can't do anything you want. Oh yeah, I can do anything I want. I got a library full of people that thought they could do anything they want, and all they did was run right into a tree. Because they really believe they deserve to be unbounded. They believe in the way they move will never be stopped. I'll never run into a tree. Boom. It can also be beautiful. So when you're talking about an artist or a boxer or a painter or whatever, and using words like heavenly, flowing, graceful, rich, those are Neptune words. When you're talking about them and you're using words like really diluted, really off the wall is Uranus, but like really lost in space, unglued, those are Neptune words. You can start to see as you play. One of the most important things to do in astrology is to just pick up and play with the keywords to these planets and signs. That's how you start to put it all together. I've told you so many times, people Jupiter, Neptune, very heavenly. When Jupiter, Neptune together, almost always they're very, very heavenly, very interested in God, very interested in their spiritual path. But if it's square or if it's opposite, watch out. We're going to join a cult. Where's David Koresh? Because the Jupiter Neptune is like, we'll follow you anywhere. It's going to all work out right. He's telling me he's going to take me to God, and he must be serious. So you got to watch out for the aspects. The Jupiter Neptune is usually very highly trustable. And the Jupiter bad aspects to Neptune are usually significant to watch. Are you screwing yourself? Are you being taken by somebody? When Neptune comes into your life, like a lot of business people will call me, hey, I'm thinking of investing $1 million here. Or I'm thinking of joining with this other guy, a couple $1 million a year. First thing I look for, right to Neptune. If Neptune's around, I just go, shh. Let me tell you a story before I forget. I'll come back. Come back to Jupiter, Neptune. I've had clients in the last 10 years that are under a Neptune influence. And I tried in vain for very many years to explain to them what Neptune's doing, what it's not doing. And finally, I got intelligent and I said, come back in 2 years. I'm not going to talk to you. That was smart. Because I don't know what I'm talking about. Come back in 2 or 3 years. Because this Neptune time means this is between you and God. You go off on your 40-day hike up in the mountains. You go figure this out. Go on out in the woods. Get along with nature. You got to figure it out with God, not with me. Plus, I don't want the responsibility of setting you up with somebody that's trying to steal millions from you or whatever. So I've had good luck with that. And people come back a couple years later and see, I see what you mean. And we progress from there. But that's happened many times. Okay. Saturn, Neptune. You can't even talk about it. Saturn, Neptune is so damn confusing. I've seen it millions of times. I have no idea what it means. I've seen this people with their sun right in between Saturn and Neptune. I've seen Saturn opposite Neptune. It's just two planets that are strange bedfellows. They just don't get along. Jupiter and Neptune get along great because they're both unbounded. They're both highly spirited. Saturn and Neptune, I'm really not sure what to tell you. I'm just not really sure what to tell you. And you look in any good astrology book, and they're going to pretty much tell you the same thing, that Saturn Neptune is one of the hardest aspects to try to translate for somebody because their natures are just so different. Saturn's trying to congeal things. Neptune's trying to uncongeal them. Then when you get into the outer planets, like Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, Neptune, it gets even worse. You can't possibly translate these things. They're so complex and so difficult to deal with. So when Neptune is around you, like starting to aspect one of your planets, you will start to feel a little weird. You will start to feel a little out of it. You will start to feel like, I want to be away from everybody. I want to go somewhere kind of quiet. Because you're starting to trust. That quiet voice inside is speaking up. And we're not used to letting that voice be heard. Because we're used to all the screams. Who's battling who in here? And when the Neptune gets loud or louder, it doesn't ever get loud. It's always quiet and sure. It's a very different feeling. I've heard experts talk about this, about how do you know if something's from God or if something's from your ego? It's a good question. It's from the ego if it's loud and it's fighting and it's excluding. It's from God if it's including and it's quiet and it's inclusive. So when Neptune's on you, you will feel a kindness. I want to get away from you kindly. I don't want to do away with you, but I just need to step aside. Thank you. I want to start wearing no makeup. I want to start swimming more. Almost always, people move to where there's water when Neptune's on. Almost a guarantee. Next to a lake, next to an ocean, because the Neptune, the water, is symbolic of the flow of spirit. So, there are many things I can talk about Neptune. I would like to open this up for your questions, because I'm sure you've seen Piscean people. I'm sure you've had Neptune episodes in your life. I would like to help you to try to understand it better, but I think you understand the basics of what I'm talking about. Neptune will support you if you're making heavenly gestures. Actions towards oneness, actions toward forgiveness, kindness, bringing people together. Neptune will not support you if you're stealing money, having affairs, etc. I had a good friend of mine brought me in to look at his books. I'm not going to tell you what kind of job it was. And I found out that his secretary had just quit. And I said, oh man, she took a bunch of money with her. He said, I was afraid of that. I said, you gonna do anything about it? He said, no. I said, good for you. I said, but she took a lot of money with her. She felt she deserved it. Said he understood. So you get me. If you're feeling harsh inside, revengeful, hateful, it ain't Neptune. So let's open this to any questions that you may have about your charts, about Neptune. Yes, Deborah. I'll ask you to unmute yourself. I'll get you unmuted. You are still muted. There. No, you're still unmuted. You're still muted.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. This is not a question about me, but I was, as soon as you mentioned Simone Biles, I wondered if being starry-eyed, that Neptune influence in her, because she's moving to Green Bay to be with her new husband, who's just signed a one-year contract with the Green Bay Packers. And it would seem to me someone with as much potential for stardom as she has, that, that she would come to Green Bay of all places in Wisconsin.
Well, you have to always remember that Virgo people are unlike all the rest of us, Kathy. Virgo people, everything is based on how good they do their job.
Mm-hmm.
That's simple. You can't climb any higher mountain than what Simone Biles did. And I'll tell you right now that her quitting was a major good symbol that she was in touch with her spiritual part inside. She may have not used those words because she was battling all the press that was trying to go get us a medal, go get us a medal, right? I think it's a very good sign that she's kind of retiring from it. And you'd have to look at the rest of her chart to see what's pulling on her. And remember, Virgo people are always just one tick away from being called to the ministry, from being called to the hospitals, being nurses. She's mastered. I mean, look at what the girl can master on the balance beam. I mean, it's just impossible. So she's not in the same category with us. But you got to remember, like I've talked a lot about this year, Virgos are very pure. They're very pure and caring. They really are. And they frankly don't understand people that aren't. And I got to the end of that book and I ripped up the Virgo chapter and threw it out. I said, we can't keep talking about. I said, Liza, we can't just keep talking about perfectionism in Virgo. I said, that's not it. There's something else. And we knew there were two things, purity and caring. And that's what Virgos are about. The confusing thing is, here's a confusing thing about Virgos. Virgos are very critical, but they don't want you to know it. And they would die rather than you know it. But they're very critical, and I know they're very critical, but they're critical in a way more of he didn't do that right, not he's a bum. They're not personally critical. Right, Rick?
Right.
Okay. Does that help you understand her any better?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I think she's a wonderful spirit, just a wonderful.
We're more than happy to have her move to Green Bay. That's a big deal in this state, you know.
Oh,
so.
yeah. And she's
But she is a newlywed, and I remember being a newlywed, and I was starry-eyed, and I was more focused on my husband than myself, and that's the feeling I get about her right now at this point in her life.
Well, we have to take a look at her chart and remember we're not that far removed from the time when she gave up the metals.
Right.
In other words, Neptune's still probably pretty close. And starry-eyed is a real good word for using with Neptune, yes. Starry-eyed in the sense of where it's something out there where it's castles in the sky. It's not really real. But this woman is so remarkable. And I maintain that you can't even achieve the kind of balance that she's done without a remarkable sense of spirit and sense of being within space and being within no space. She's got to be some kind of remarkable blend,
Yeah,
like a Grand Trine or something. But I thought she was just fascinating. And when I saw that, I went, oh, God, leave the woman alone. It's Neptune. Yeah, but she should get us another medal. And God bless her. And God bless the Green Bay Packers.
oh, they're going to need it.
Yeah, they are. As long as us Steelers get blessed a little higher, that'll
Yeah.
be okay. Okay, next person. A good question, Deborah. Oh, there's our cat. Susan's got our kitty cat. Now, whose cat is that?
This is a cat that belongs to somebody next door.
Oh,
she likes to sleep on top of a ladder. Her name is Creamsicle.
Her name is what?
Creamsicle.
Creamsicle. I love it.
Yeah.
You're really good, Susan. You really are just.
Thank you.
You're just exceptional. What did you say your Grand Trine has? Neptune?
Yeah, Neptune, Moon, and Mars.
Who wants to take a stab at that one? That's a really excellent. Let's give it to Dr. Rick here. Neptune, Moon, and Mars. Oh, on a triangle. She's a Sagittarian. The moon is in Gemini.
Yeah.
What do you get there, Rick?
Did you say Moon and Gemini?
Yeah.
Susan?
Yes.
Moon and Gemini.
Oh, so is it out of sign in the Grand Trine?
The Mars, yeah, the Moon and the Neptune are at like 28 degrees each. And the Mars is 4 degrees into Pisces.
Yeah, those two are out of sign.
Gotcha. Okay.
But you got Moon, Mars, and you got Neptune. Remember that she's a professional medium too.
Yeah.
I think that, so the Moon in Gemini, I love the balance that brings to the intuitive and the rational. That balances the hemispheres of the brain. That's the first thing I'll say about that. And then Neptune is in what sign?
Neptune is in Libra.
Okay, wonderful. So there is that. See, one of the things that I say about Neptune is that it conceptualizes our images of the ideal self, our spiritual ideals. And the sad part is when you get the con artist and the crook and the liar and the thief, they have this higher ideal of who they think they are, but their closest friends could tell you they missed the mark. Right?
That's right.
So I see it as perhaps an indicator of our higher self. And when you look at Neptune filtered through Libra, I think that gives you a good insight of recognizing where you end and someone else begins.
Yeah, good points.
Probably very helpful in the mediumship, you know?
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Very good point.
Thank you.
Plus, you got to have some Scorpio. I went through mediumship classes for a couple of years, and I just didn't do anything. You have some Scorpio in you. You got Saturn at the top next to Venus in Scorpio.
Yeah.
You got to have some major Scorpio to be a good medium. You just have to. Did you know what the name of her group was? She had a duo that did internet mediumship reading. The name of the duo was Two Mediums at Large.
Right.
Oh, okay.
That's my website is Medium at Large, and she joined me for a few years, so we were two mediums at large. Yeah.
Oh, that was really good. Yeah, that's a very nice grand trine. I'm going to really urge you to go back and look at when planets were near the tips of those triangles. Go back and look. Give it 5 years either way. When Uranus went over 1 point, when Saturn went over a point, you'll see major turning points. Very good stuff, Rick. Good. Mr. Dr. John, I think we're coming, let's get you unmuted. I think we're coming down your alley tonight, talking about Neptune and talking about what it is and what it isn't. What do you think?
You talking to me?
Yes.
It really resonates with me, this whole thing. But the problem is the expression. As a poet, I work really, really, really hard to have a poem that really says what I want to say, and it's not easy. I just wrote a poem about, I retired as a lawyer, but I had a client who overdosed on heroin, and I went to the mortuary, and I was standing next to the casket, and I saw a frown on her face. And so I'm writing this poem about that. It's difficult to write because I'm part of the poem. I'm a part of the experience. And I don't want to just tell a story. It's got to be a poem, so it's got to have some language in it which goes beyond language, like metaphors and expressions of thought that take you beyond a linear sentence. It's still not done.
I don't know of anybody that would flash more with all these principles than a poet, because you're constantly playing with non-realized and realized. You're constantly tossing the two back and forth.
Well, it's even harder if you're a mystic, which
that's really confusing. Really is.
You can't express what you want to say. So the reason I write poetry is because it gives me a license to do violence to language, to make language say more than it is able to say. Still
somehow I don't believe that.
What?
That you do violence to language.
Not violence. I try to make language say more than a sentence can say.
Yeah, well, I can see that.
Yes.
Well, with Neptune, you're trying to put into words the ineffable.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Rick's he's very good. He's got a very good understanding of all these archetypes.
And also, I don't talk very easily about these things.
Well,
That's
we'll read your poetry then.
Right.
Thank you, John. Let's hear from Claudia. Claudia's got all kind of things stirring in her bank.
Well, I have a T-squared of Neptune in my chart. And I feel so Neptunian all the freaking times. I was going to say a bad word, but here's what I love about that. Now I've become a little obsessed with Neptune because now that I learned about what it really means, I have expressed it in such an unhealthy way in my life. And now I'm coming full circle into the spirit of it, into the spiritual side and into the just love. Real love. But I've done I've always felt clouded in confusion, especially in the house that it's in my chart. I've always had a lot of deceit in my life. I've always felt really just, I was addicted to drugs at one point. I was drinking way too much at one point. It was so not what I am now, but it's coming to the other side, and it's so beautiful. And the other day I looked at, there was this particular time in 2006 or 7 where I remember I was not myself. I was in a whole freaking different world. I wasn't into astrology as deeply then. I wanted to have an affair. I didn't, but I wanted very much so. I lost my mind in a way that I cannot. I thought I would do things that even I would say, what am I doing? I was heavily into photography. And wouldn't you know it? So I looked back, I looked at my chart now, I go, oh, the sun was opposing my sun. But I did things that I can't even tell you who was that person?
Yeah, it was not a person.
So powerful.
That was not a person.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the negative image of you in the photograph.
Yeah.
The opposite of you.
Well, Neptune was just dissolving the boundaries of the soul ego.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
It was a really weird time. It was a time that now I see as an opening. But then I was not, because I hadn't really surrendered yet. I hadn't at all.
That's the key. Not even
that's close.
That's the key. Now, I had a friend who lost her mind during a Neptune transit and was locked up for a while and just lost everything, blah, blah, blah. And years later, I've trained her in astrology. Neptune's coming back now on something else, and she's worried. And I keep telling her, you're not the same person. Don't worry. It's not the same Neptune planet, but it's the same Neptune. You've allowed Neptune up, and you've established a rapport with it now. Maybe you've got to adjust it a little bit, but she's doing much better with the second transit.
Great. That's great. I have 2 children who have now their moon in Virgo are in the later degrees.
Right.
And I'm looking at them and I'm watching what they're doing, and I'm hoping they don't get into bad stuff or
but you don't have to worry about it because they got Miss Neptune living with them. I'm serious. They got a perfect example of a glowing spirit living right next to their bedroom.
They're
not going to miss that. They're not going to miss this.
When
they got eyeballs, they can see what's going on in the world.
Yeah. I would imagine this whole group right here has a relationship with their own.
Oh, this is a beautiful. It's a beautiful group. Yes, it is.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Claudia. I thought that was really nice. I will say this is unbelievable, but I do thousands and thousands of composite charts where you put the sun in the sun and find the middle, put the moon in the moon, you find the middle, Mercury. I've done them 30, 40 years. And you're not going to believe this. I'm not a real big believer after having done so many. I think they're semi-strong. I think they're semi-meaningless, but they're pretty meaningful in some ways. But almost everybody I have ever mixed my chart with has a T-square to Neptune. Almost everybody, I'd say 90% of the people I've ever mixed me with them, there's a T-square to Neptune. I have no idea what that means, but that's really far out. Come on now, Erica, rest of you, Sean, Kathy, Susan.
I was just thinking about a program that I saw. I don't know if it was on Peacock or on Netflix, but it was about the brain and how the brain works and how we perceive our world. How.
Yes, I watched that. Yes.
Come in through the eyes and everything, and how our brain is just making up the rest of it. We can only
Right.
see one thing at a time. And that's kind of connected to Neptune because like it's all nothingness. It's just what our brain is perceiving and telling us based on our experience that we have up until then. And maybe even some of it is what is that conscious level where you tap into the level of everybody else's consciousness and mind, and that's how you're able.
Global consciousness.
Yeah, something like global consciousness, but it really explains a lot. Collective consciousness. So maybe that's what Neptune does, is it
exactly
dissolves
right.
our own consciousness, which is experienced through ourself, and it shows us everything. So we're nothing.
Exactly right. Yeah.
But yet we're everything.
That's exactly right.
That's what made me think of that.
Well, that's a perfect. I saw the same show. Remarkable. I think you're exactly right.
It's
I also thought of Rudy Giuliani and when Neptune hit him, and that was like when the stuff was dripping down his face.
That's Neptune. Sure, dripping, the wicked witch going down into the puddle. Yeah. Good, Rick.
Erica's idea about the consciousness dissolving. It's interesting that after we discover, we first discover Uranus, where it's awakening, and then those ideas, false and positive, mistakes and truths, we end up needing to dissolve and then transform with Pluto. I think those trans-Saturnine planets work together that way.
Oh, I think so. Very good. Very good stuff. Well, you think about it. Watch the sun and moon in Aries and Taurus. Go through the zodiac and advance through it. When you get to the end and you get to Capricorn and you get to Aquarius, the soul is getting really big and has a lot of broad interest. And then Pisces comes. And Pisces is so misunderstood. So many Pisces people, they just don't understand what they are. They don't understand it. They know they're not ambitious. They listen to other people, tell them that they have no backbone. These people are full of love. They're glowing. All they want to do is give love, but they don't have anything to support them. That's why I try to help them to revive some of the ego that they're trying to kill. And they have to have a little more ego, or they can't cross the street. Come on now, Sean. We know you're up in the Northeast and you got all these great ideas.
Yeah, so I have Neptune and Jupiter together in Capricorn. So the way I'm analyzing it is because you said Neptune tests you to see, to make you choose to do the right thing. So Neptune being in Capricorn, I would guess it tests me in the working area, the work in the field, my job, like wherever I would be progressing in life and to take care of my liberty. And being that Jupiter is there, is that it would test me with, like with big things or something like large money to see if I would either, it gives me ways to say, for example, steal. And then it's trying to see, is he going to steal?
That's an Neptune,
It's like, it shows you, it gives you the opportunity to see, don't steal anything, don't ever try to, it just tells you, it teaches you how to do the right thing. When you do listen to that voice, you don't have to see a reward, but you just feel it within yourself, like you're passing certain stages and you're going up. So, it's just teaching, it's lifting you up, I would say. And also, you said something about Neptune being like the Holy Spirit, right? So what was I gonna say? So for example, oh yeah, yes. So they link Neptune to escapism.
Right.
So what is that connection with the Holy Spirit and escapism? Is it to detach from this system or this language system what we have going on here?
Escapism is it's a misnomer. It's called escapism, but it's nothing more than wanting to leave the physical plane and go back to the spiritual plane when you don't understand it right. A lot of Neptune people are alcoholics, lots of them, and they want to just escape the boundaries that they're in. They can't stand boundaries. They just don't know how to deal with it. And one of the things interesting about you, when you've got Jupiter in Capricorn next to Neptune, you've got a double, triple whammy going on there. Because you've got the Jupiter Neptune, which is beautiful, but Jupiter doesn't want to be in Capricorn.
Right.
Jupiter's in its detriment there. Jupiter wants to expand, and Capricorn doesn't know what that means. So you're in a constant, let me open up, let me get unbounded, but let me control it while I'm doing it. You can't do that. That's the problem with it. That's the problem. You can't control, you can't take God's hand while he's painting the Sistine Chapel and help him move his wrists. You just can't do it. You have to truly let go. And for you, I think that's the real lesson of your chart, is letting go and trusting. And that's not easy.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at. Trying to figure out what is this letting go thing and what to let go and all that type of stuff.
And I think you will. And I think you'll be a hell of a teacher too. But I'll bet you anything that you've had people around you all your life with a lot of control issues.
Yeah, big time. Yes.
and you're past that now. You're past it. And this is a wonderful group. This group is largely past it. I think it's really great. Thank you, Sean. Let's hear from Kathy. Hasn't said a word. Thank you. That was really good. Come on, Kathy. What do your Virgo-ness say?
I was looking at my chart here, and my Neptune is in Libra in the 12th house.
Right.
So that's, and there's some, it looks like it's sextile to Pluto.
That's very common in our subgeneration. We all had Neptune sextile to Pluto.
And then it looks like it was square to Venus. I think it's where it's drawing on here. Or,
Squaring to Venus?
Yeah.
Neptune square to Venus. Where's your Venus at?
At the top of my chart.
What sign?
Hold on. Cancer.
Yes, square. Okay, the problem with Venus square to Neptune, especially with Venus in Cancer, you got, I don't care where Pluto is, Neptune square to Venus in Cancer is a super romantic. What do you think a Virgo sun says to a super romantic? Come on, get back down here and start talking some sense. And Venus next to Neptune in Cancer is like, whoop-de-doo. Oh, but he loves me, Daddy. You gotta look at how he looks at me. I mean, that's really a romantic image. And I told you, they might hide it, but Virgos are very pure people. They're very pure. Just look at their skin. Just look at their skin. Almost all of them, pure skin.
Well, and I've noticed that purity applies on many different levels. It's just not a surface level, but it's, it goes deeper than that. And I've been noticing the differences in how that shows up in my life. So.
Oh, the Virgos can't stand people that do crappy work, the people that don't care about their work. I watched a guy one time, he was a furniture builder, which is a Virgo, and which is common for Virgo males. He put 9 coats of polyurethane on this table he was building. 9. And this thing was shining. This thing was just shining. It was so beautiful. But they can talk gruffly. They can even say crude things. But the first one to come to the defense of the weak, the first one in the hospital, they're all lined up. I saw this picture today of this guy having a heart attack. It was on YouTube, having a heart attack, and he filmed it. And this woman came out of nowhere, nurse, and jumped on him on the gurney and started doing CPR. Just instinct saves his life. And I said to myself, you know me, Virgo.
Yeah.
And I bet she did save his life. So it's a wonderful sign. And really, when you think about all 12 signs, they're all just so different. They just really are. I need to write a follow-up to that book about how different they really are, but it's just too laborious. So what are you going to say?
I write it for you, Rick.
Okay, honey. What? Okay, now all of you, what do you got to say tonight? Did you get any further clarity about dealing with Neptune? Did something help you? I hope it did. Go ahead, Deborah.
Well, I'm kind of going back to last week when I babbled, when you asked me to comment. But I've been thinking all week about that, and now with Neptune, I'm thinking we're in the 21st century, and Pluto is dancing back and forth in Aquarius. I think we still have a lot to learn, not only about the planets we have in our solar system, but those exoplanets. And I think we're going into an age where the revelations of what these other energies mean are going to start becoming clear to us, and maybe even alter or modify our current understanding of them.
Boy, that was well said.
Rick, I hope so. I really babbled less.
That was really non-babble. That was really good. Rick and I meet every Wednesday and talk, and it's on a pretty high level, really. And we were asking ourselves yesterday, why in the hell is all this going on at once? Why? And it's a really hard question. I think you have some very good points there, Deborah. What do you think, Rick?
Well, in response to your question as to what we may have uncovered for the first time, earlier this week, I had spoken to somebody having some concerns about mental balance, and I suggested some classical music so that it's not going to have the lyric, and it will also work with the brain. And with this discussion here, it made me think, ooh, I wonder if clearing our heads is facilitated by taking the walk because of the feet and the Pisces connection. Just like swimming into our world, you know? Mm-hmm. Especially a nighttime walk. I think those can be very head clearing, but or a walk in the woods. I think. Oh, and the other thing that I thought of was, what about a labyrinth walk where you're doing the switchbacks, going back and forth? I think that would be great for those times where Neptune, and I know myself, I also, when I saw what Neptune did in my chart in my early years, I dove into transcendental meditation. Mm-hmm. That was another big one that was helpful.
And there's nothing that's going to satisfy what you need under a Neptune time better than swimming.
I feel like Pisces
love water. They just love to swim.
Yeah, with Pisces and Neptune, I feel like my experience as a Pisces, like I can, we represent the feet, Aries represent the head. People come to me with issues all the time. I could pretty much go in the situation and tell them exactly what to do. But because of how I explain it, they never get it. But then when the time comes, if they had listened, it would have worked. But I guess because we're the feet, so we got there already, but we ain't supposed to tell you in a sense.
Well, the Pisces people, I think, need to learn to just say nothing.
Don't say anything.
They feel so obligated to answer. Yeah. Well, you better answer because he's asking. Yeah. He's vulnerable and you got to help him. Hey, no, you don't.
Right.
Just be concerned. Show them your love. Ask them if they want to go swimming. Put a big smile on your face.
Yeah.
And take them by the hand to the lake and jump in.
Pretty much.
Pisces is, the original title of this book was Pisces, the Ultimate Sign. So you can tell, I think, very highly of them. It's just hard to be one.
Does it Neptune represent confusion as well?
Yes, it represents confusion. It does. But there's only confusion if you're trying to figure things out. That's Virgo. Once you stop trying to figure it out and just let it be, that's Pisces.
That's a part of the holding on, like trying to not let go.
It's all about letting it be, and that's not easy.
I think it also ends up being an issue if you're holding on to phoniness.
Phoniness?
Fraudulent thinking.
Oh, yeah.
Give me an example of that.
Oh.
A random example.
Whoa. If you're looking to deceive people regularly.
Phony preachers.
Okay.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah, there's another one.
I could see that in my old, like as a younger person.
Yeah.
Like you could do manipulating things like that and people could go in a trance actually.
Yeah.
But not now,
Well, what about a salesman who just bowls you over?
Right.
Yeah.
We are in a hell of an age now, and we can't have any more phonies, and we got to have really sincere, strong people, and a lot of them are coming out of this group, pyramid schemes. You're right, Erica. So anyhow, thanks everybody. Tonight's been a really good talk. I didn't know how it would go because Neptune's so peculiar. But if I can help you any further with Neptune, just let me know. If you have trouble with it in your chart, I can help you a good bit. But I think Rick had some real good ideas about it too. But this whole group is just getting better and better. So thanks, everybody. Thank you, YouTubers.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, all you honest people.
Okay. Have a great week, everybody.
Thank you, all phonies, too.
Happy Memorial Day.
Happy Memorial Day.
Oh, it is. That's right. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Yes. Okay.
Remember